Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Columbus Common Council regular meeting agenda. Welcome to those in our audience, and also welcome to those that are streaming online. If I could have a roll call, please.
Finkler?
Here.
Hammer?
Here.
Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Roki?
Present.
Steiner?
Here.
Okay, and if you would join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And, excuse me, we have had notice of open meeting, and if I could entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda, although I will make one note under new business with the consider and take action of the Chevy Tahoe. On the cover letter, it says Napleton Ford, but it is actually Napleton Chevrolet. So with that note in there. So
Alder Rolke will move to approve the agenda with the change mentioned. I'll second.
okay, I have a motion by Alder Rolke and a second by Alder Finkler to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence and communications. We have Amanda here with Baker Tilly. So,
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Amanda Blomberg from Baker Tilly, and I'll be presenting on the 2022 financial statements. What I'll focus on here is a few financial highlights. You probably received a large financial statement document and another document called audit results. So I'll be kind of boiling down some of that financial information into what I think is important to you. I did also have sent to you a few charts, and that's really what I'm going to be speaking from, but feel free to ask any other questions as we go along here. All right, so we'll start with the charts. We're going to focus on the general fund. The general fund is the main operating fund of the city, so that gets a lot of attention from outsiders. So one of the areas that we look at there is the fund balance. So the fund balance is essentially equity, assets minus liabilities, whatever is left over in the reserves. And so the fund balance actually gets divided up into a few different categories, essentially based on liquidity of those funds. And so you'll see on this chart here, we'll start kind of with the table in the middle where it says summarized income statement. You'll see total revenues minus total expenditures for the year ended up with an increase in fund balance in total of about $409,000. You'll see the final budget right next to that. There was actually a planned decrease of about $150,000 in the general fund. So you actually did very well by not actually decreasing, but actually increasing by quite a bit. So if we go up to the top chart there, you'll see that the total fund balance line in comparison to last year, so the green line is this year, the black line is last year, you'll see the total went up $409,000. If we start at the bottom of that chart, you'll see the non-spendable amount. That is essentially reserves or assets that are tied up. We can't liquidate them. We can't use them to pay our bills. So things like advances to other funds, long-term type receivables, and prepaid items. Prepaids that cash is gone, we can't get that back to pay our bills at this point. You'll see then, compared to last year, that balance went down about $50,000. So not a big change there. If we go up the chart there, you'll see the next amounts land in the assigned category. And those are really just kind of designations. We're either planning to use these funds for a specific purpose, although that's totally under your control to change that if you want, or we're planning to use them in the next budget cycle, so in the 23 year in this case. This balance only went up about $50,000. So those two previous categories kind of offset each other, and the majority of that $400,000 increase actually went to that unassigned category. And the unassigned is basically like this is available to be used. There's no funds earmarked for any purpose. It's just there in our reserves to pay our bills. All right, if you flip to the next page, we're going to look at how that fund balance has compared to your annual expenditures in the general fund over the course of the last 5 years. Now, when we compare your fund balance to the annual expenditures, you get a ratio or a percentage. You'll see that I have a couple of lines here, so I'll try to do my best here to explain. But the city, first of all, has a policy that says, well, we want our unassigned fund balance amount to fall between 10 to 25% of our annual expenditures in the general fund. So on this chart here, you'll see that that 10 is marked by the red line and the 25 is marked by the black line. So that's the range that you want to fall in. The actual unassigned is the blue line, which actually falls within that range each year, kind of up and down throughout the years, but relatively stable within that policy or that goal. I also added the green line up above because this takes your assigned and unassigned totals, because really that assigned is kind of under your control. And if you look at that in comparison to your annual expenditures, those percentages are much higher. So not only are you falling within, your stated goal, but when we look at both categories, you're actually quite a bit above that. What this tells us is that, you essentially have fund balance that will get you through 40% of your year, if assuming no revenues, which we hope that's not the case. But that's a really good place to fall. It's actually it gives you a lot of flexibility in, how you might fund something that comes up that you weren't planning on, or if you need to use some fund balance for a specific purpose, you do have a little bit of a cushion there. The Government Finance Officers Association, which is a national organization that provides a lot of guidance to local governments, actually says that, you want to make sure you have at least 2 months on hand. So that's about 17%. So you're falling, quite a bit above that. But that'd be the green line. So they're saying the green line should at least be 17%. Your blue line is actually, meeting that minimum recommendation as well. So just wanted to point that out. So fund balance is sitting pretty well in the general fund. Any questions on that? All right. The next 2 pages talk about the general obligation debt. So this is another area of focus when outsiders are looking at your financial statements. It gives them an idea of, well, how flexible can you be if something does come up? Can you borrow for it? Do you have room under your statutory limit? So as mentioned, general obligation debt does have a statutory limitation, which is 5% of the city's equalized value. You'll see that that debt capacity or that debt limit is that black line on that chart there. And you'll see that kind of goes up over time, which we would, plan to see as equalized value also goes up. The green line is the actual total general obligation debt outstanding. And so at the end of 22, you were at 33% of your debt limit. Generally, anything under 50% is very good. I do have a few clients that are over 50% with very active TIF districts in development and a lot of that kind of financing going on. But given the size of the city of Columbus and the development going on here, 33% is definitely a very good place to be. It basically means that you have a lot of flexibility. If something were to come up, you want to do a street project, you have the bandwidth or, the ability to borrow some funds for such a project. This does not include revenue debt. I do want to mention that the utilities generally issue revenue bonds, and that's secured by their charges for services or customer charges. The general obligation debt is secured by the tax levy. You'll see that the utilities do have a small amount of general obligation debt outstanding, and they do repay that with customer charges. So, and then the city portion does have some TIF debt outstanding. I don't have that number right in front of me, but just know that not all of that is repaid directly by the tax levy. There is increment repaying that for some of the TIF districts. If you go to the last page, this takes the annual debt service payments and compares it to the rest of your expenses across your governmental funds. And so basically how much of our annual costs are related to debt service is what this is telling us. I generally look at anything under 20% as being in good shape. You're not, not too much of your budget goes to debt service if you're under that 20% mark. And you'll see over the last 5 years, you've been right in that 18 to 19% range, very steady over the last few years. So that means that, generally, your expenses are pretty comparable from year to year, as are your debt payments. So nothing's, going way up or down from year to year. It's a pretty predictable pattern there. You'll see some information here on what the principal and interest totals were and what the factors were going into those calculations there with your non-capital expenditures. But all in all, the debt is in a good spot. Again, provides you some flexibility there, and the general fund has a pretty healthy fund balance. So any questions on that?
Any
Or
questions from
anything
anybody?
else?
All right. Well, thank you, Amanda.
All right, thank you for having me.
Okay, next would be the consent agenda approval, which is the Council and Committee of the Whole minutes from September 19th and the 22nd, and then license approval, and then also street closing request from the Columbus Fire Department for their open house.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the approval of the additional operator license that was on our desk.
Reed will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Reed to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consent agenda approved. Under new business, item number 1 is to approve resolution number 11-23, which recognizes Public Power Week for the week of October 1st through the 7th of 2023. You have the resolution in front of you.
Alder Gray moves to approve resolution 11-23.
Alder Motif will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motif to approve resolution number 11-23. And any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution 11-23 is passed. If we could have this resolution posted on our website and Facebook page, and then also at our posting places. Next on the agenda is the resolution number 12-23, and that is to recognize Fire Protection Week, October 8th through the 14th of 2023.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve Resolution 1223, recognizing Fire Prevention Week.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Finkler to approve resolution number 12-23 for Fire Protection Week. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And again, if we could have that resolution posted on our website and this posting places. And then next on the agenda is item number 3, which is to consider and take action on 2023 Chevy Tahoe Police Squad. Dennis is here. He can give us a little further information on that.
Good evening. I put together the memo for the council packet, kind of just summarizing the changes that happened as recent as last week. But for everyone else, I'll just kind of give a quick overview of it. Previously, I came before the council asking for permission to order a 2024 squad car when they began taking orders, which was supposed to be September 26th, which is a Tuesday. The Friday before, I was notified that due to the current United Auto Workers strike, that none of the manufacturers were going to be releasing their pricing, and deliveries were going to be delayed even more than they already are. And the police automakers are still delivering squads that were ordered in early 2022. So that was very concerning. In addition, we were told to expect 12 to 20% price increase from across the board from all the manufacturers, which I budgeted for in 2024. I budgeted $50,000 just for the squad. I got a call last Monday from Napleton Chevrolet, who has a state contract for Chevrolets, that a sheriff's department had ordered 2 Chevy Tahoe police pursuit vehicles, and they changed their mind once they were in. I don't know if it was financial. I don't know, whatever the reason was. Napleton has a very, very long list of people who need squads, and they decided to call local first. I had been dealing with them, getting prices and quotes together, expecting to order 2024. So essentially, they have offered us that squad car for the amount of $41,547.94. And the anticipated, and again, this is unknown yet, was 2024 would be in the $49,000 to $50,000 range, whether it be Chevy or Ford, which are the 2 primary squads now. Dodge, typically the pricing has gone, Dodge has been the lowest, Ford's been in the middle, Chevy's been on the top. I know a neighboring police department just quoted out a 2024 Dodge Squad, and it was $48,000. So they have gone up over $13,000 in the last year to 2 years. So I think this is a heck of a deal. We can have it immediately. I initially was just going to pass on it because I thought it would take substantial work to get the funding figured out, and they want to get it off of their lot, and there's many other people waiting for it. But I decided to reach out to Crystal and Lisa, and it is affordable in this year's budget. It can be done. I included in the packet the spec sheet I got from Napleton. This is just a stock photo. This is a Chevy Tahoe, but we are getting a black one to match our fleet. So this is not representative of the vehicle we're getting. It's missing a couple of options that I typically order with the squads that help our installers do some things like some pre-wiring for some of the emergency lights and stuff like that. But those are things that our installer can do. Are going to cost us a couple extra $100. So in the grand scheme of things, this is still one heck of a bargain. Also, the Sheriff's Department, if you look on the quote worksheet, there's an Echo Master dash camera, which is the only option that the Sheriff's Department added on for $406. And I plan on removing that because we'll have a squad video camera in this car. And this dash camera is like a civilian little square one that hangs behind the rearview mirror. It's always running, it's always recording, it records to a flash drive, and then it's just going to be difficult to continually download the SD card and because it's a created record and those types of things. So I don't know what their plan was for this vehicle, but what they purchased for the camera is not for a police or a patrol vehicle. So maybe a detective or maybe some upper admin in the sheriff's department was going to have it. But I mean, we're stuck with it because it's part of the vehicle and it's part of the price. But in the end, maybe I can turn it around to someone else and at least recoup something out of it. So I guess my request is to be able to purchase a squad from Napleton Chevrolet for $41,547.94.
Okay,
If you
could I
have
have a
any
motion?
questions, I'm sorry. I was going to say, if you have any questions, please do. I mean, this is, I mean, it was very lucky because I was actually at our vehicle outfitters yesterday in Portage, just trying to get some prices together to make sure I had enough budget in '24 to outfit this vehicle. And they were just telling me of all the departments that can't get squads. And there's a department that they service, that they build squads for, that bought one in Boston and had it transported here on a car carrier and paid like $1,500 or $2,000 to get it here because that's the closest one they could find. So the good thing is, if I'm permitted to purchase this and we add it to our fleet, we will not need a squad until at least 25. Barring we don't get in an accident or total one or it burns up or something. But I mean, just as a normal fleet management, 2025 would be the earliest you would hear from me about getting another squad, and potentially 26. So hopefully the police vehicle issues would resolve themselves by then, and it would be back to kind of a normal thing. But I just think this is a great deal. The timing is perfect. We won't outfit it. We'll park it in the garage until after the first of the year, until I can order the equipment and our installer can get it in. But I think the timing just fell into place, and the opportunity to save $8,000 or $9,000 potentially on one purchase, I think, is substantial.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I will move to approve the purchase of the 2023 Chevy Tahoe Police Squad from Napleton Chevrolet for $41,547.94. Alder Roki will second.
Okay, I have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Roki to purchase the 2023 Chevy Tahoe vehicle. Is there any further discussion on this from anybody? Okay, could we have a roll call?
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye on this and start ordering for 2025 now.
I'm thinking about it.
Reed,
Aye.
Roki,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the timing was phenomenal. That's awesome. So, next is to consider and take action on the Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court 2024 budget, and this is just us approving their budget. Was discussed at last meeting, so. Okay.
Alder Roki will move to approve the Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court 2024 budget.
Gray seconds.
I have a motion by Alder Roki and a second by Alder Gray to approve the Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court budget. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, we're not spending any money on this, so this can just be all those in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next on the agenda is the approval of the CSM for the Dollar Tree. Is there anything that you need to report on this?
We would just ask that since this is the original certified survey map that was submitted, that any approval you provide is conditioned upon the engineer's comments and letters so that it can be updated to meet all of the requirements of statute.
One other piece of information, the second condition on approval of the CSM is that the sale did actually go through, and it did. So the sale did close on the 20th of September, and the deeds were recorded on the 26th.
Alder Gray moves to approve the certified survey map for parcels 1121-1090.p and 1121-1090.c for applicant CBD DT LLC, with the provision that the applicant must address all of the comments, clarification items, and concerns as noted in the city engineer's letter dated September 8th, 2023.
And a revised copy be submitted?
I suppose, and a revised copy be submitted for further review.
Alder Motif will second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Gray as stated, because I don't think I can repeat that. And then a second by Alder Motif. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Then we are on to item number 6, which is consider and take action on the scope of services and agreement with JSD for the Scout Cabin.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the scope of work from JSD on the Scout Cabin for the amount of $2,400.
Alder Steiner can second.
Okay, a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Steiner to approve the $2,400 for JSD's scope of services and agreement for the Scout Cabin. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Gray,
Aye.
Motif,
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. And then item number 7 is to take action on the claims in the amount of $334,380.25.
Alder Gray moves to approve the claims in the amount of $334,380.25.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Finkler to approve the claims. We will need any further discussion on this. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Motif,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye. Paper is covering my...
Motion carries.
And next is report of the city officers and City Administrator Wilson.
So I guess I'll start. I'll just give some updates on some of the projects kind of that we're working on. So obviously tonight you saw the Dollar Tree. The site plan for the Dollar Tree is also in. We do have the engineering and the planning comments that are back. So we'll be sending those out to the property owner, asking for some revisions. The Planning Commission, when they met on the 14th, we did talk about the murals and changing the ordinance. I have started to do some research on that, kind of looking at what other communities are doing, how they're fitting it into their ordinances, and hope to work with the Beautification Board and the Historic Landmark and Preservation Commission on some draft amendments. I did have a meeting with Lopnau's builder and architect. It's kind of stalled over there. They're sending me some additional information for us to take a look at so we can figure out how to best proceed to meet the agreement and the project. The mayor and I did meet with Public Works and had I think a pretty nice discussion with them. But I do have another meeting set up and kind of plan to meet with them in the future to kind of talk about some of the issues and how we work to address those hopefully as a team. I know administration, it sounds like, has kind of been absent down there, so I think it's it's good for me to go down and actually kind of build a relationship with each of the guys in the department so that we can kind of hopefully fix some of the problems that have occurred in the past. I did go to the first Rotary meeting on the 27th and was introduced and inducted, so I'm hoping to kind of make that sign kind of a regular thing. And then I'm not sure how much anybody's aware of the STP Urban Grant that we received for Tower Drive. Chris tried to go out. We have to do RFQs rather than RFPs. We can't have a dollar sign attached to what they submit. We have to work with them and the DOT to come up with a number together in a contract. We did not get the required number of RFQs resubmitted, so we're kind of behind the 8 ball. So today I had to submit a schedule change to kind of push the project back because we can't meet our timelines. I have to go back out for an RFQ using their DOT-approved listing of engineering firms. So we will go back through and do that. We don't want to lose the grant funds. I did want to, if anybody's been past Rotary Park, the roof has been replaced. It looks really nice. So thank you to the Rotary for the grant and Drexel for the materials, and then for Public Works getting out there and putting that up. It's a big job. And then I have started to set up meetings with department heads, taking tours of facilities. So if you stop by looking for me and I'm not here, that's probably where I'm at. So that's all I have.
Thank you. As stated, we are recognizing Public Power Week this week. There are approximately 2,000 public power utilities in the United States, providing electricity to 49 million people. Fire Prevention Week is October 8th through the 14th, and there will be an open house at the fire station on Saturday, October 14th from 1 till 4, correct? Thank you. And then a reminder that we have a special COW next week, October 10th, and that will be a budget workshop and public information meeting, and that will be starting at 6 o'clock p.m. And then just a friendly reminder to the citizens of our city that keeping the gutters clean of your grass clippings and keeping anything clear of the catch basins. We discussed stormwater issues and flooding and such, but the more material that we as citizens put in those pipes, the harder it is for that water to go away. So it's just important to try to keep your area clear. And that's all I have. Thank you. And with that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Alder Finkler will move to adjourn.
Alder Motive will second.
I have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motive to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Does anybody need a break before the next one, or do you just want to roll right into it? All right. In that case, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. It is Tuesday, October 3rd, and it is about 7:04 p.m. And Pat, if I could have a roll call, please.
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Rolke,
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
Okay, and tonight's meeting has been properly noticed. Now I'll take a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Motive will move to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Steiner can second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Steiner. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Sorry, any opposed? Okay. Looks like we have a couple of people signed up to speak. Henry Elling, you wanted to speak now, or, okay.
I didn't know if this would be, is he in for under the budget part?
I'll just take 2 seconds,
Oh,
and then if
sure.
it comes up again later, that's great.
Okay.
Henry Elling, 650 South Charles Street. Thank you very much for the time tonight. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Historic Preservation Commission, just to thank you for having the money installed in the proposed budget for next year. If there are any questions when we get to that point of the presentation, I'm happy to address them. Second thing I wanted to mention, last year, October 11th, I was here and asked about the water tower fund that we have set aside $1,500 every calendar year for future expenses for that. And the city administrator told me that I should wait until the audit was approved and then come in with a written request. So the audit was presented tonight. You will be receiving a written request to designate that $1,500 from the 2022 budget that was not expended at that time. Thank you.
And then I also have Lisa Famularo. Sure.
Hello, thank you for putting our item on the agenda tonight from the Cable Commission to hear our case for applying for an FCC permit for a low-power FM radio station. I can answer any questions on that when it comes time. I have some materials that I can give you all to help out with that as well. So we'll deal with that when we get to it, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to speak who did not sign up on the sign-in sheet? Okay. Included in your packet tonight, you will find committee and commission minutes from Beautification Committee on 8/16, Cable on 5/4, 6/7, 7/24, Recreation on 6/12, Tourism on 8/7, and Utilities on 8/24. And then the next item on the agenda is to discuss the Rupert-Milky pay request, number 1, 2023, street maintenance. Jason, did you want to address that?
Good evening and thank you. So tonight before you is a pay request for the first and only pay request for the 2023 street maintenance project this year that really consisted around asphalt patching various locations around the city. The total pay request before you tonight does not have the retainage as the work has all been completed and inspected, so we just did one pay request. At the bottom you see a summary where we broke out the responsibilities for the budgets. There was some patching included in this contract for the water utility. They were having trouble getting asphalt contractors in here, so we tacked it on and we got some good pricing, which made sense. So we incorporated that in here as well. This task order is within the budgets that have been provided, and the work has been completed. So the consideration tonight is for Wolf Paving for the payment. I know the item says Rupert-Milky to discuss the pay request 1, but I just want to make sure nobody cuts me a check for $92,000. As funny as that sounds, it's happened before. So is there any questions on the street project? I think it was well done this year, and I do want to reach out and thank the utility and primarily Ryan down at DPW for helping coordinate some of this. I know there's been a lot of transition, but it was done really well by staff. So,
Thank you, Jason. Anybody have any questions? Is everybody comfortable moving this forward for a vote? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda this evening is presentation of the draft 2024 City of Columbus budget. And I'm going to turn this one over to Crystal.
All right, so it's been a whirlwind of a long few months, but we're getting there. So just first of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do things a little differently this year. I was able to make some modifications in our process. Just one of the first things we did was we had an accounting software update, which allowed us to connect with a My Viewpoint. It's an invoicing software that connects with our Cassell. So this has given us the tools for all of our directors to be able to go online. They can look at all their transactions. They are approving their transactions, all the expenditures that you get in your packet each month, well, twice a month. So this has been a really good enhancement for our directors. So in doing so, I was looking towards the budget season, and I'm able to use that tool to help them be able to get into each one of their accounts. So they can look at their general ledger account, they can click on it, they can go and look at all the detail for the year, they can look at histories. So when you look at the budget worksheets that you have, these lovely Excel spreadsheets, I took a training to get into a program that we also have connected to CO.W. It's called My Excel. So when I found out how nifty it is, I can keep up to date in an Excel spreadsheet. So what I've done is I've gone through each department and I looked at the various accounts that they have basically control over. Some you can't, costs are what they are, payroll is what it is. But this gives them an opportunity to see all of their accounts that they have interaction with, that they have an effect on. And that includes their revenues. Most of the time they're writing a budget and it just includes their expenses. So I created each one of them their own specific workbook so that they can see an overall view of what their department is doing. One of the changes I did make is I looked at Parks and Rec, and there's a crossover between DPW and the Parks funds, the Parks accounts. So it's basically on both of their workbooks. That way, I even tagged who's responsible for every single account in our general ledger accounting system. So in doing so, that way I could consolidate down to who's going to do what. Two of the people I added to that was Pat, our clerk. There's several accounts that she's very, very familiar with, and I wanted her to spend the time there. I also found accounts that our media coordinator is very familiar with on the transactions. He didn't necessarily know the account. So I summarized things for him, and I was able to have David help me in that area. If you remember in our budget overview, we came up with and showed you a total levy that Chris and I worked very hard. We were able to give out, let's see, how do I explain this? Once we got back all the departments' budgets and we looked through all the different funds, we came up with where we think the budget should be. And even though there was a little bit of cuts, and everybody kind of got a little bit of cut through Chris's tutelage, when we came down to a bottom line, we were comfortable with the increase in the levy. Since then, we've had some errors to correct. We've had a few little dollars going back and forth. We did have the police department's vehicle that was removed from capital projects. That amount that was still in that bottom line levy, we put that in the general fund. We were able to put back a few of the cuts. We finished working on payroll, the payroll increases, and so we stayed at that very exact same levy dollar that we showed you back in August. We're pretty much 99% there. We've got a few little areas where we're correcting some payroll, a few little fine tunings, but we are not changing that bottom line dollar that we gave you a month ago, okay? So in that, let's see, yep, I went over everything. I believe in your packet you have a cover sheet that goes first. It's got the order of the departments. I think you guys are all sticking with it, correct? Okay, we have an order. I will turn the time over to each of our departments, going down to cemetery. Are you going to speak at all? You wanted me to? Okay. Okay. There is David's here to help me answer questions. We do have Deb here with the cemetery to answer questions. So we will go down through Public Works, and then I'll take back over. Thank you. Oh, I said down to Public Works. Yeah. So we're starting, okay. Fire department, police department, library, community center, Parks and Rec, and then Public Works.
All right. Hello, everyone. You've seen the points that I had for the budget request. I got a few other points I'd like to add to it because I am asking for a substantial amount. One thing I mentioned was in our department head meeting that Wisconsin passed a shared revenue deal, so Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs lobbied very hard for this legislation. Governor Evers, in order to pass it, he also included Public Works, so I've been hearing that people are going to go into roads with that money, with the shared revenue, but what we told, I was just at Dane County Chiefs last month, and the president of the Chiefs Association, is a chief at Fitchburg, said that they're going to be doing audits on all those shared revenue funds, so just wanted to inform people of that so that they're finding out. He said it must be a substantial amount committed to public safety, so just that you know. With the increases, budgets in the last couple, 3 years has not, prices in the fire service have skyrocketed. So for instance, for example, 2007, we bought a fire engine for $375,000. Our new rescue squad we had, it's already 3 years old, that was $560,000, somewhere in that ballpark. We just spec'd out a new engine, which was $1,040,000 and some change, and that wasn't even high bid. So everything's been going up. So our fleet is getting older. Other than the new squad, we have a 2000 engine, a 2001 brush truck, a 2007 utility pickup that we are replacing, and then my command truck, a 2009. Our tower, the big ladder truck, that's a 1997. That'll be due in 30 years old. We'd like to get that replaced, and hearing that it's taking 3 years to buy a truck, a ladder truck. And I don't even want to tell you the price of those. And then pumper tender and the 2 water tankers, which are rural, those are 2007, 1998, and 2002. So 3 of those trucks are overdue for replacement. I know I've mentioned before about the needing a full-time position because of the administrative inspections. We had a lot of inspectors, but the excitement has kind of worn off, so now they're not doing as many inspections. We're falling behind again. And for my 20 hours a week, I don't have time to do inspections. So, and day-to-day operations. So hopefully sometime in the future you'll consider that. That would help us a lot. The one good thing we have is I just got officially got announced on the FG website that we did receive a grant for a compressor at $68,000. So when that comes to the cost, I figured out that grant is a 95-5, 95% being paid by the government, 5% paid by us. So if I split that between the rural group and the city, that's probably going to run around $1,700 somewhere in there each side. So pretty good deal for a $68,000. So, and I just got a DNR grant again for a protection grant at $4,000, and that's a 50-50. So we're trying to supplement money wherever we can with grant writing. I'm working on another one right now. So, but otherwise, the last thing I want to say is we got a great bunch of firefighters, men and women, on our department. They go to a lot of classes. We got a lot of new turnover. We've had retirements. We got new people coming on board. I got 2 in line right now, going to background checks. So that's been killing my budget too, because of all the training. Physicals cost $800 a piece, and with a little bit of a physical we have them do. So it's all costing money. So I guess that's all I got. Any questions?
I just have one. That $68,000 grant, what was that for?
That was
you got?
a breathing air compressor.
Okay.
So we've been after that for a while now. We do have a compressor right now, but it doesn't, we have storage cylinders in our fire truck, so when we're out on the fire scene, we can refill our air tanks. The compressor we have right now will not fill our tanks on our backs. They won't fill it up all the way. And it won't fill up all the storage cylinders, because the storage cylinders have more pressure than our actual air tanks do, so we can fill more cylinders. So, plus our filling station at the fire station is just a diamond plate box, and that's not really, if any of those air tanks would explode, all that thing is gonna be a shrapnel, so it's gonna have a containment station that's explosion proof, so.
Any other questions? Greg?
Yes.
Oh, Alderman.
I was trying to read through the notes and compare, and I'm not following up why there's such a large increase on the administration officers line.
I think where that is they added a stipend for the chief for $25 a call, plus then you have the monthly payments to the deputy chiefs, and then the quarterly payments to the officers each quarter, so.
And that totals, I mean, that's a very large increase. It's almost, I mean, it's over 10 grand, all that's. Crystal, is it possible to get detail?
If I may, no, if you look at it, the actuals have been higher than the budget for several years. They never
Oh.
fully budgeted correctly. So that's one of the things we've been really diligent this year.
Yep,
is to-
I see that.
To try to budget as correctly as we can.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. I was digging.
Alder Gray, did you have a question?
I mean, mine was more, it was similar. I feel like what the chief is presenting to us and talking to us about has very little to do with the numbers we're looking at. Like, you're talking about requests and future things that you would like to do.
Yeah.
But none of those things are representative in anything that I'm looking at. Like, the budget I'm looking at has nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah, well, I had the bullet points there before the budget. They're all listed on here where we were asking for the increases. I was just adding some notes onto that.
Right, what I'm saying is I don't see any potential asks or increases or how it would impact anything. Like, the notes and the items you were talking about are not included at all of what we're looking at, is unless I'm completely off base and somebody else is seeing something I'm not. Like,
Do you have a specific
Well,
example?
I can't think of much of what he spoke on is included. Like, pick one.
You mean you're
So-
not seeing the money for physicals? Like, I'm confused what you're saying.
Well, he's requesting, like, more hours, him going full-time. He's talking about trucks and all sorts of things, and none of that is here.
Well, the reason I brought up the trucks was compare the maintenance and upkeep with the age of the trucks have increased because the trucks are getting older and parts are getting harder to find. So that's why I gave you the age of the trucks and the condition needing for replacement, because the maintenance has, well, we're over budget on the maintenance. So that's why I brought that up.
No, you are correct. So
Yeah.
what you have here is the proposed budget for 2024, and he was bringing up some additional points. That, no, we did not budget for a full-time. That was not a
Right.
formal request that we were able to get put through at this time.
Correct.
And the truck expenses, the aging truck expenses are included. Is there one more?
Yeah, I was just confused on what we were discussing or how we were supposed to be
Well, I was
looking at.
comparing the numbers for the request and why some of those numbers are going
Okay.
up. Like, for instance, training wages are, well, they're either at or over now, because we had in the past, we had 15 to 20 showing up for drills and trainings and extra trainings and outside of the department, and now we're getting 25 to 30 people, so that budget.
Right. Well, and I mean,
That's why the
if-
budget is up.
And I mean, if it's that much up, I don't think that's even really reflected in this. I mean, most of what I'm looking at is basically catching up for a very under-budgeted items. Like, the vast majority is we're just catching up or almost catching up to what we've actually spent in the past. I don't see anything of real increases that you've mentioned. That's kind of where my
Okay.
disconnect is.
Okay.
You're talking about all of these additional things you need, and none of that is in front of us. That's my takeaway from this anyway, if I'm incorrect.
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your presentation and what I have are two polar opposites is all I'm saying. So.
Yeah,
that's-
what it is, asking what's on the, it was what we have now and trying to compare what the increase was for, and we're looking at in the future, that's not in the budget, so.
So are you saying you're unhappy with the budget here?
Oh, no. No, I was just trying to point it out why there's increases in the budget.
I'm good. I think the increases, they make sense. We're catching up and properly budgeting. That's really what it's all about.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't really concerned with the updates about the future possible cost. I don't think there was any ask there in the updates. I just wanted to ask about the inspection line, and yes, it does look like we were way under for this year. And then it looks like the amount for next year was brought down. I was wondering if that one should stay back up to the level that we're hoping for inspections to happen.
Yeah, because we have, I think we're under budget on that, and usually when they're training new inspectors, we take another one with them, so you're paying for two for doing one until they can go on their own, so.
So if you take the total wages, if you take the wages in total, I have a workbook where we're working on that, and it's kind of spread out. So I really don't feel like we need to adjust one item versus the other. We put it in total and try to break it out the best we can. So if we go over on, say, that training, we're not expecting to go over on all of those wages, and we do want to kind of have a leveled out year. It was an extreme year. If I go back and look at trends, that's not the norm. So I would not want to have a totally inflated budget.
So we should be fine if we wind up actually having the proper amount of inspections from a
Yeah.
different line.
Well, the only thing we can do is look at the other lines, because I don't believe in total we're under budgeting,
Okay,
under all the different wages.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, we've got the police department next.
Good evening again. I will just spend a couple minutes talking about some things that we're experiencing here in 2023, and then lead into my summary of my 2024 budget. My 2024 budget is actually pretty flat, pretty consistent and comparable to last year. Some increases in one or two areas that I can explain. Talk just a little bit about 2023. If you look at where we're at on the sheets that were distributed as of September 25th, 2023, you'll see that on PD professional fees, I'm already over budget. That's going to continue to potentially get deeper, hoping that we can make a hire yet this fall. That line item is used for a whole bunch of things. Hiring is expensive, as the fire chief had said. Physicals run between $8,000 and $1,000 for us. Psychs are $700. All types of things. Legal fees, this year I had a pretty serious personnel issue and used the labor attorney. And I also had to have the labor attorney write the side letter to the union contract that I previously came before you about being able to hire lateral entry, an amendment to the contract. And those two items combined were several thousand unexpected dollars. So in the years past, I've been okay with that line item. but it's the hiring, the unexpected hiring. We had one applicant, we ran through all the testing this year and then changed his mind at the last minute and decided not to be a police officer. So we spent probably $1,200, $1,300 on him and got nothing out of it. So that line item, the overage and the continuing overage that'll be the rest of this year is not some arbitrary purchase or some arbitrary expenditure. I kind of consider it the price of doing business, the hiring, the legal fees. I do a lot of the personnel stuff on my own, but with those two specific issues, the city's labor attorney definitely needed to be involved. So that's the reason why that's over. And as a result, you'll see in the 2024 budget in that line item, I went up several $1,000s. That line item is also used to pay our IT fees for our IT provider, and there were many unexpected expenses this year, some things that went bad, and there was some finger pointing and more than what we predicted to be the average IT services being provided. So all of that created the overage. Again, it was no arbitrary purchase or something I wanted to buy. It was all, things that you don't plan for, but they happen, just like in our personal lives. Some positive things in 2023, we paid off our copier. So you'll see in the capital lease line item for 2023, there's a decent balance left in that. I'll be coming before you probably within the next month or so to replace our copier. It's going on 6 years old. And with the residual money in our the contract for the copier is the only monies that come out of that line item. With what we have left, what we can put down on a new copier, our new contract will actually be a little cheaper per month for a much nicer machine, one that runs faster, scans faster, and we're trying. I don't think we'll ever be paperless, but with our new records management system, we're scanning in a lot of our victim witness forms, our tickets, our things like that, and then electronically attaching them to the report in the computer system. So we're gradually using a lot less paper and printing a lot less, but we're scanning a lot more. So I just recently got 2 quotes. They're pretty much neck and neck, but I'll be coming before you at some point. And my budget for next year for that capital lease for the copier reflects an actual cost, and it'll actually probably be $20 or $30 less a month than what I budgeted for by the time we get done with it. I was notified Friday from the federal government that I did get the body armor grant that I applied for. You're only allowed to apply for so many vests based on your staff and their lifetime and then anticipated hires. So I received half of 4 bulletproof vests. They increased in price as well, which you'll see in my bullet points that were part of the packet. So that equates to about $2,000 that'll save us. And what's nice about that, even though I just got the grant approved and notification Friday, purchases can go back to April of 2023 forward, because that's what they use for their fiscal year for this body vest grant. And we very recently purchased 2 of them, one for the officer we have in the academy and one for the part-timer that we just hired. You'll also see in the line item for 2023, the cellular phone line item has got a halfway decent balance left to it. At the end of 2022, AT&T was offering an outstanding program to switch to their FirstNet program, which is a specific cellular and data network only for first responders. And along with that came some unbelievable rebates. We updated the high-speed modems we have in our squads. There's 5 of them. They're normally about $750 a piece for a little electronic box. And those were all free as part of this switching over. The officers all got new cell phones, so that was 10 of them. We did have to pay a little bit of that, but they also then came with some rebates once it started. So for 2023, we didn't pay a cellular or a wireless modem bill until July or August. So, and at the end of this year, there'll be some money being returned, whatever's left in that. And then next year, it goes back to just the regular rate, so that's what I budgeted for. So if you happen to look at that line item and say, wow, they haven't used much money this year, that's why. It was a one-time just crazy. They're trying to hook everybody into this FirstNet program, and we had to pay probably $800 or $900 to probably save 6 or 7 between the modems and the cell phones. So that was a good bargain in my mind. Looking at the line item, we're okay this year on overtime. Last year, I think I went $100 over, but considering our staffing woes this year, I think that's amazing that we're not already over on overtime. My staff do a tremendous job. They work really hard and they really care about this community. And hopefully we can keep that going. Software licensing, if you look for this year, you'll see a tremendous balance in there. Most of our software licensing payments come due in the fall. We get a several $1,000 bill from Columbia County for the CAD system that we run in our cars. We each have little individual key fobs, so we have the multi-factor authentication. There's antivirus in 5 of the squads. There's a NetMotion connection in all the squads. And for maintaining, we have it on all the computers in the office. So there's a several $1,000 bill yet to come from Columbia County, so that's why that balance is still so high. We also have all kinds of different software licenses. We have software licenses. The officers, we have a software program on our phones that we dictate all of our reports on. That's $100 a year per officer, so there's $1,000 for that. And we just have several other various. So that'll be burned up by the end of the year, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's just how the billing cycles go for those vendors. 2023 vacancies. We're going to return a substantial amount of unused wage and benefit money. I wish I had the people. I would rather have to come up here and beg for money to do something. But we've had vacancies this year, so there'll be a fair amount of money returned or unused by my department this year for staff. Looking into 2024, and I'll wrap this up in just a minute because I know it's going to be a long night. Professional fees, as I mentioned, I increase. I think that's a reasonable number that I put it at. Fuel costs, I put an increase in the fuel costs just because the prices have stayed pretty high. Again, a lot of things go up or down depending on the staffing numbers. We're technically down 3 positions now. We have 1 in the academy, so he really doesn't count. And then we're down 2 full-time positions. When you have less staff, you use less fuel. You put less miles on the squads. We write less tickets. I mean, there's just kind of this slippery slope of staffing issues. So I didn't raise the fuel a whole lot, but I think it's a realistic number. One of the things that I discovered reviewing for this meeting was that we had $6,000 budgeted this year for a part-time position, and then that's what I budgeted for next year, and it was cut. And I think it was potentially, I've talked to Crystal about that today, and I think it's fixable. We actually just hired a part-timer with 32 years of experience, and it looks like our vacancies may continue. We just closed a recruitment a week ago, and we're down to 3 or 4 people, and we haven't even started the screening. They could have been hired somewhere yet. So we're working on that, but that part-timer is a key position to let my officers get time off, to let them get to training, and to just be someone we can call when we need to come in. So
just a note on that, it wasn't a budget cut, it was an oversight. We're looking at his budget for staffing as fully staffed. So we just need to go back and look at what all we have in the full-time positions and what we have in that part-time, because there was a note early in that we didn't have any part-times, so it didn't get translated over later. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking at for your final report in 2 weeks.
And Crystal did tell me it was an oversight and it's fixable, but I just want to stress that that is a key position. And I would hate to tell somebody that actually started his part-time training yesterday with us that December 31st, thanks, but you're done. It's very important. But the good thing is, well, not really a good thing, but the offset is if we're using him a lot, it's because we still have those vacancies and we have the money from those vacancies to offset. So even, let's say next year I run over in the part-time wages $3,000 or $4,000, we're going to have that probably 5 or 10-fold because we haven't filled a position. So, and it's a part-timer who is committed to working here and he wants to be long-term and retired recently from the State Patrol as a lieutenant. And I would hate to kind of cut him off at the knees after he made, I think, a pretty generous commitment to us. I increased training a little bit. That's always an incentive. That's always a tool to help with retention. I know the training that we have gotten some of our employees to this year, they've been really excited and very thankful. And that's always good if you can keep their interest up in some of the skills. Another increase that I had was PD small items of equipment. We have 7 chairs in the squad room. Each officer has their own little cube with a chair, and they're pretty beat up and need to be replaced. And also under that, I was going to replace 2 tasers. We have 10 tasers. Each officer's issued a taser, and we've been replacing 2. 2024 would be the 3rd year in a row we're replacing 2, but we're replacing 12, 13, 14-year-old tasers. And they're an electronic, and they have, an electronic lifespan, and parts are no longer available for those models, so that's a problem we often run into. Those are pretty much the highlights, kind of a summary of the bullet points that I typed up and that were included, and I would gladly answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any, sorry, Alder Gray.
Thank you very much, Chief. You are always very conservative in your budget, and that's what is leading me to my line of thought and questions. So in the past, we have frequently made things possible because you've been understaffed. Like, we've reutilized things that I would like to hopefully pay out in the budget that we won't have to utilize in the future, hopefully, if all goes well and we're up to full staff. Comparing to the fire department, we had a 33% increase overall, mostly just because we were budgeting to where we should have been budgeting.
Sure.
I'm a little fearful that we're still not fully budgeting to where we should be budgeting for you because we've been historically understaffed so frequently that we may be missing some of the budget points that should potentially be higher than what they are.
Okay.
So I would like to maybe if you and Crystal could dive into it and look at some items that if you were operating at full capacity, what other things should go up, and what other things are starting to age out that you're going to need to start replacing more, like tasers. Because I would like to hope that we'll be fully staffed and we won't be able to take that money to replace random things in the future. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think your budget might be too modest, in my opinion.
I've been very appreciative all the years that I've been doing the budget, and I think for a very small department, we do very well. With the purchase of this squad car. Again, we won't need a squad car till 25, maybe 26. Our fleet is in very good shape. All the computers in the squad cars are 2 years old or less. All the modems, and these are the big ticket items. All the modems in the trunk of the squads were new last December. This year, in this year's the 2023 budget, I replaced all the desktop computers in the office. Big ticket item. So I'm pleased with where we are with what we have, and I've always tried to save where we can, and I think I've been successful with that. And Crystal and I, we're actually going to meet after the meeting tonight briefly about the part-time issue. But yeah, we can certainly review some things. But as it's presented, I'm comfortable with this, and I think it's workable. But
yeah, even just random things, like you mentioned fuel. Like, if we have a full staff of people driving around all the time and fuel prices continue to increase, should we, up that? Even if it's just minor amounts here and there for random things. And for, equipment expenses, I know we have replaced a lot of things, which is awesome, largely due to surpluses we had from areas that we would have liked to not have. But, there's going to be random other things.
Right,
so
absolutely.
I don't know if it's a horrible thing to have a little bit of padding in your budget in a couple areas, just so that we can hopefully be fully up and running and not have to rely on, shortages in other areas.
Thank you.
Alder Motive?
Again, I think you do great at budgeting. I appreciate how conservative you are. One of the things that I've been saying to you, and that a lot of the others have been saying, is we need to get the officers up in wages so that they're at least at median, so you're not having a hard time filling these positions. Are we there?
We have a meeting scheduled for October 11th with the union, and they have our proposals, and we will be getting theirs probably before then. And that's obviously something that's going to be helpful to the recruiting efforts and the retention efforts as well.
Yeah.
It's for somebody who wants to move on somewhere and make a lot of money, There's lots and lots of options. There's agencies, just about everybody within a 10 or 15-mile radius of here is hiring.
So the next version of the budget should have the increase, and we should know if we're,
Well, that would be a Crystal question, because we really don't have, I think, if I remember, Chris told me that they had just penciled some scenarios in the impact, but we have agreed on nothing. We haven't talked to the union, and we haven't come to that, because normally they start here and we start here, and then
Right.
you end up there. So formal numbers have not been talked about, but I believe Chris told me he did some ballpark
Right
estimates on
now,
what the
there's a
impact.
5% increase in there, and whether or not that will be enough for next year, because they're looking at a phase-in over, was it 2-year or 3-year? A 3-year phase-in, so if by chance we do need to increase that 5%, that was not considered in our bottom line levy at this point. We're kind of right. I don't have wiggle room to go pull it from somewhere else. So that, it would definitely need to be an increase, and yeah, we don't have any padding in there for it. So this is one area there where there could be a potential increase in that bottom
would
line
we
levy
be
that we
wise to
discussed.
build in some padding for that somehow?
Yeah, by next week we'll know. If that's going to be next year's standard, or if we need to increase it for next year and then project out the 3-year phase-in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Okay. Library fund.
All right, hello everyone. So my name is Amanda Wakeman. I've been the library director since June 1st of this year, so I'm relatively new. I'll say a huge thank you to Crystal. She has made this process really painless for me doing it the first time for Columbus. So it's been really great. So I guess I just want to promote the library a little bit, talk about our budget and why things have moved a little bit. So going from 2022 to 2023, at the library, we've seen currently, year to date, about a 15% increase in the amount of visits we have. We've seen a 16% increase on the use of our computers and our Wi-Fi. And we've actually seen a 150% increase in our public use of our program rooms and our annex for meetings, tutoring, interviews, that kind of thing. And so our goal for 2024 is to keep all of this going. We want to continue forward, and something that to increase everything, it means a little bit more money. So we'll talk about the budget and where we have added and where we have kind of gone down a little bit. So in our budget, overall, I'm looking at a $23,000-ish increase. Going from 2023 to 2024, the bottom line, you have to subtract $100,000 because last year $100,000 was added to it for the roofing project for both the library and the annex that has been completed. So most of that $20,000 more is for staff increases. Like the rest of the city, we tried to do a 5% increase across the board for our staff. We are fully staffed at 11 people at the library, which also includes somebody who is just a substitute. So we want to make sure we stay fully staffed and continue moving forward with the great staff we have. A couple of our staff members have been there for over 20 years. So the knowledge, the experience that they bring, it's unmatched. So with that 5% raise, that adds about $14,000 to our budget. So of the $23,000, we went up about $14,000 of that is just staff. For our revenue, our tax subsidy from the city, we're asking for about $5,000 more, which is a 1.72% increase. Our county funds, the Columbia County amount, which is $97,000, that has already gone through the finance committee with Columbia County. So pending it going through the entire board, which shouldn't be a problem, that will be our subsidy from them. And then we also, Dodge County hasn't gone through yet, but that traditionally has not been a problem. So we are looking at about just a small increase for county funds. Otherwise, across the board for our revenues, we tried to keep things similar to last year. There are some, like I like to write grants, but that's not something you can really add into the budget because you don't know whether you'll be getting them or not. So then under expenditures, once again, like I talked about, the biggest increase is overall with all the staff, it's a $14,000 increase. We did look at the city salary study that was done. Our staff, except for One position is slightly below the median. Absolutely everybody else is at or above the median. The one position is me. It's fine. It's right below. By next year, it'll be caught up. So that's a non-issue. We are where the salary study says we should be. Otherwise, we did slightly cut our budget for physical books within the library. The reason for that is because we're pretty small, and what was happening is we were spending $25,000 on books, and that means you have to continuously rotate them, weed some out. Books were being pulled out of the library that didn't need to be. So it's really creating a lot of waste for us by spending so much. So we did lower those a little bit. So we're bringing in less brand new books from us, but that means we're also not getting rid of books that we don't need to get rid of. The other thing is because we're part of South Central Library System, we have access to 54 other libraries' collections. So it's not like our patrons will have less books. They still have millions of books available to them. And then we also increased our funding for both youth programs and adult programs. Programs have been more popular than ever at the library. We've had to double the amount of story times we have. We had 55 show up a couple weeks ago. Our little program room, if you've been in it, does not hold 55 people. So we've had to, okay, now we're going to do 2 story times a week rather than just 1. Adult programming has been popular as well. I did a little craft night last Monday. I had to stop registration a week early because I had 24 people signed up. And once again, if you've been in our program room, 24 adults sitting at tables doing a craft, it was really tight. But it's a great problem to have that people want to come to the library. Otherwise, stuff like utilities and stuff I increased slightly, but most of the budget is nothing substantial. So, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Amanda. Anybody have any questions? Alder Gray?
It looks really good, and I know you said that you are comfortable with your salary, but you're also the only person that's slightly under. I also see that you are getting the lowest increase of any employee at the library. The lowest percentage-wise.
Not really, because the budgeted amount from last year was for the previous director. She was higher than what they hired me at on June 1st. So I am getting it is a 5% raise.
Just doesn't
it's just mine is not.
On
what I'm actually making is not on the budget.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. That's good. That's reassuring. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
We've got the community center and Kim Lang.
Good evening. As you can see, my budget didn't increase a lot. The main area that we are asking for a little extra is in our programming budget. We're back to participation levels that we had seen previously prior to COVID, which means more participation, and we have a lot of new members coming in from the community that are learning about us now that we're called the community center, not the senior center. So folks are coming and we're getting more membership, which needs a little bit more in the program supply area. But that's offset by the fact that a lot of the programs that cost us significant expenditures are also being offset by the costs of the things that we charge. For example, we have a birthday lunch, but the costs of that lunch in total are paid for by those who are participating. It doesn't show that because it's a different account. There's a revenue and an expense account, so they offset each other. But we do need a little bit extra there. But most of the other things we've worked on keeping things down in one area to offset any expenses that we need, any funding we need for additional expenses with the increase in just costs overall. We've seen a lot of great new activities, and we work really hard to keep those in line with our budget. So even if we're doing new things and adding new things, it doesn't necessarily mean more expenses in our budget. It just means working a little harder at finding ways to pay for them outside of our budget.
Thank you, Kim. Does anybody have any questions? Other motive?
What's included in the capital items?
Capital items are generally, for us, roof repairs.
Okay.
We don't have any equipment or anything like that that we're looking at having to replace this year. But as you may know, our roof is an ongoing project. So there's some additional maintenance that we're doing. The DPW came up with some really great solutions to some of our issues up there that have seemed to be working fairly well. So we're trying to keep ahead of any, extreme issues there. But that's generally what that money is for.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kim. Okay, we've got Parks and Recreation and Amy Jo.
Hello. So, as you know, this is a combined review, and it's a little bit changed, so bear with me. So we'll start with the recreation side of it. Recreation had a really good year. It was up 69.97% this year. Basically, we had a really big increase with our younger programming with soccer, volleyball, and basketball. Our numbers really increased with the demographics with the younger age groups. As you know, everything is based off of volunteer coaches, so that's a big thing there. And where am I at here? When we started the budgeting programming here, we were looking for an assistant for the months of September through November, where we're already through the budget season for the most part. And I think by the time we're done with this, that opportunity is going to pass. So I don't think we'll be asking for that in the budget season. And then, let's see, we'll go through the page here on revenues. I'm all over the place here, I apologize. We have the Recreation Fund, and then we have the Parks General Fund. We added the athletic fields to the general fund, the Special Parks Fund, which would be like the pickleball courts and the Warner Street Parks, Total Park and Recreation, the Community Aquatic Center Fund, Combined City Recreation, and then Crystal, can you remind me what the Note A is? What that is on that one page there?
Oh, sure. Just overall, it got brought up a couple times, and then when Chris was here, I kind of was talking to him about Amy Jo's area. She's so encompassing with everything to do with parks and recreation that we wanted to have an idea, well, what's that whole thing look like? So I just put together a summary of the different pieces of budget and put them in here. And the idea was, well, how much are we funding this with through the city directly versus people coming and paying for an event, paying to go swim? And so that's just this note here. The first line are, if you look, the Aquatic Center gets a direct tax subsidy. So when we look at your taxes, and we say, well, general fund, this fund, these are the pieces of our total tax levy for the city. The Aquatic Center gets a specific designated piece, okay? Line 2 is where these funds are in the general fund, and so the general fund gets a piece of tax levy. But so in other words, these are pieces of that general fund, and I'm basing it on the revenues that are generated minus the expenses. Basically, the rest is coming from taxes, from that general fund tax levy. So I wanted to just see how much is really coming from tax levy versus the public paying. And so that's what that little note kind of describes. You've got 44.24% coming from levy, and 55.76 are coming from program revenues, people coming and paying. I just
Makes
thought
sense.
it was good information. It was information I liked, I was looking for.
It's a good breakdown.
And I thought you might want to see that too.
Okay, so then we have like the rental sales in there, and then the miscellaneous interest and the grants and the donations. So basically, all in all, it comes down to a 0.43% when you have all of the combined departments in there for recreation, which is pretty good. And then moving on to the Aquatic Center. The Aquatic Center had a really good year as well. You would remember that with revenues, we had a small increase on some of the non-resident fees on just certain memberships. And we added an additional session for swimming lessons and raised some enrollment fees for swim teams. Staff, we had an increase on the head guards and the positions overall, and increase in their pay. And we did have some expenses as well. We had a lot of expenses this year with the aging pool. And then overall, we had a really good season at the 2023 pool. So we don't have a lot of changes for expenditures next year. We do have our chlorine feeder that we have to replace. And then we have a couple of things on our pumps that are in the budget for expenditures that we're looking at replacing. Otherwise, we don't have any big target items that we have to fix.
Thanks, Amy Jo. Anybody have any questions?
So many line items to look at.
There is a lot. There is a lot.
Yeah, I gave her a big task. I gave her a lot.
There's a lot here, and I am kind of babbling all over the place here. I apologize for that. I would like to ask that it's me, myself, and I. I don't have an assistant. If you could find it in your heart to find a way to get me an assistant, that would be wonderful. Full-time, part-time. Like Lisa said, what do you do if I got hit by a bus? I have 3 tournaments in October and 2 in November for basketball. I mean, if I wake up one morning and I have vertigo, what happens?
That was actually a question I was going to ask. Now I'm having a hard time finding it because there's so many things. It looks like we had it for about $6,000 in 2023, and then it disappeared. And
Well,
it's
that's
on
for
the budget.
September through November. Yeah.
And now it's not on the budget anymore.
Well, there is one, is it a 2-month period of time?
But that was
that
for
we
September
budgeted
through
for?
November.
We do have something in there, hold on. And we decided it was all park related. All right, let's find it.
We did.
Okay. All right, it is in the general fund, which is the 100 accounts, and parks,
Under recreation assistant.
Yeah, there it is. It's
yeah, recreation assistant.
123, yeah. Yeah, so we had one for a brief period of time and then they went away. Like, I can't remember that. What
In the
hap-
summertime, I have my summer camp, so I have a camp lead person who works seasonally in the summertime, and then they're done. I've never had an assistant in my 13 years. I've had volunteers.
Okay.
It's a difficult position because it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's evenings, it's weekends, it's difficult to fill that position. I have some ideas. I ran it by Adam. I'd like to run some ideas past Lisa perhaps. Maybe.
But even going to that recreation assistant, I don't see it in this year's budget. Is that still a position you're going to need temporary during the summer?
It's not so much, well, it's hard to explain. Summer, I'm really covered because I have seasonal positions. It's
Right.
really the fall that I'm very busy with the
found it.
fall
You
events.
find, okay.
Yeah, it looks like when when we added the line, I have a master page.
Right.
Correct.
In my Excel spreadsheet, okay? Every one of these is a separate tab. So, looks like it added here and didn't add to her specific one in here. So,
Okay.
when you go to the big budget, if you want to flip to it, It is on page 14 of 46.
Of the main book?
Yes.
Okay, so it's still there, it's
on page
just.
14 of 46. It's
not-
the DP, rec assistant, and this was for just the fall section of time, is what we built into the budget currently, for $7,350.
Okay,
And that covered
and that's
2
an
months or
increase,
so.
so,
Yeah, I think it was a 2-month period of time. That's all that's built in here at this point.
okay. I mean,
We'll fix that formula.
What's that?
You'll fix that formula then, so it appears in both?
Oh, yeah,
it's
it
in
just
our
needs
big
to get in her personal work, her department workbook. Yeah, we'll add that in there.
I mean, I think the idea of an assistant for you is a good one and has merit, so I think that is something that should be looked into more, and that probably, you're right, that probably is best to start between you and Lisa, and I think that is something that we should think about in the future. It could even be someone that could be a little more encompassing too, because there's, I think, a little bit of a missing element of like social media and like gathering and marketing. So perhaps your assistant could also have some more marketing or details that they could also be utilized in elsewhere in the city for marketing as well. But I mean, I think that you're right. I think that's a conversation to start with Lisa.
Alder Steiner?
I just think a full-time assistant is probably pretty essential. Having worked with Amy Jo, she does put in a lot of hours, and that would cover a lot of that. We don't want to burn out our rec director, and since we are kind of categorizing her as park director as well to this extent, and she does manage all the facilities and buildings there for that purpose, and it's a lot of work putting in, everything that she does. A full-time rec assistant, I guess would be the, whatever you want to call it, would be beneficial if she does have to be off for a certain amount of time, gets hurt or gets sick, and she's not going to be here forever, so we need someone else that can replace her, and seasonal help is always going to come and go, so, we need someone who's always here with her.
Alder Finkler?
I agree with Alder Steiner, and I believe we should be considering a full-time assistant.
I'll share my plan with you now, really quick then, as long as I'm here. And Kane Brauskowski, he is the aquatics manager, you know that. And he's been with the city since he's been 16 for 12 years now. And I believe some year when I'm ready to retire, he's used to working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. He would be a good fit. He could teach first aid, CPR, fill the role. He's familiar with the recreation side of it. He could fill in my position. He's familiar with the aquatics. He's familiar with recreation. We could double up on each other's side. So I think that he would be a good fit, somebody to consider. Just, it's a good thought. Just, obviously, just some options. So, in the winter months, I do a lot of things at the aquatic center to prepare for the spring and season. Those are things that he could do that I don't have to do. There's a lot of benefit to it. Just some thoughts, so.
Alder Gray?
Yeah, and again, I think it's a really good idea. I think that could be a great role for our city. I do think it should start with a conversation with you and
Absolutely.
Lisa.
I
And
know
we
that.
should look, the two of you should probably figure out what the role would entail, what the position would be, duties and things. Create a role, not a person to fit a role is,
Job description,
Horse
everything.
and cart need to be lined up, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Amy Jo.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we've got Public Works and Ryan, Tori.
Good evening. Some of you may not know me. My name's Ryan Weber. Been at Public Works for 5 years, maintenance worker 1. First year with the budget, first year actually participating in the budget and actually getting to do any of this. So I worked with Crystal and Chris quite a bit on it. I think we did a pretty good job coming through our budget. A big expense that we're over on in '23 is our equipment maintenance budget. A lot of that is due to the street sweeper having to be hauled in to get fixed. for some unforeseen annual parts that need to be replaced that I think went away with a previous employer that none of us were aware of. So it got ran too long without those parts being replaced. We're aware of them now. The big expense in that was having it transported down there because we had to hire a semi and a separate company to come in and haul it down there because they're way over in north side of Milwaukee, I believe. So focusing this year would be more in-house repairs on that now that we know those parts that need to be fixed and maintenance every year and or having the vendor come to us more. Next one's clothing. We all know that that's increased, so that line item went up for our clothing costs for the employees. The pavilion budget line item, you might notice, went way down, but we had, in 2023, we had projected project for the staircase. We had extra money in there. We have now taken that out and put that into a capital project for 2024. So there's like I think it's like a $20,000 drop in the pavilion line item. Don't be worried, alarmed, that's about where it needs to be. We had more in there in 2023 because of the staircase. Administration equipment went up a little bit. We have one computer to upgrade. Apparently it's pretty much at its limit. There's no more capacity as we keep going up with in the computer world. That one will not be compatible from what I'm told. Another thing to help out with that maintenance program too, we're working on a 5-year capital equipment tools replacement plan, trying to get that maintenance cost down by replacing some aging equipment, or for like this year, in 2024 for the capital budget, we have a new John Deere mower which will do sidewalks and mow in the summertime. Right now we have a lawnmower that just does sidewalks, and we have a lawnmower that just mows in the summertime. So to try to keep that down, we're trying to take 2, get 1, a lot less maintenance cost, more efficiency. The way I look at it, the less you use equipment actually is worse than actually using it. Leaving it sit for 6 months is worse than just running it all the time. We're trying to bid out the cemetery again because we had great seasonals this year. But we didn't have enough, and they're not sustainable. We don't have enough of them at the right times of year. We have a lot of high school kids that are here from, June to August. Well, we have 4 months that we have to cover with full-time staff, and we were very fortunate this year that it didn't rain. As much as nobody liked their lawn looking brown, we would have not gotten anything done this year if we would have had them mowing up the cemetery. So we have that out right now. I believe we've heard some interest back, but I don't know if we've actually gotten bids in for that. 2024 budget, like I said, we worked hard on it. We're going to anticipate a full staff. We did do some interviewing this week. We still have discussions to do with Lisa and HR right now, but we just got done with them this week. We got some pretty good candidates. And despite limited leadership or lack thereof this year, the Public Works Department has successfully tackled and completed all planned and unforeseen tasks and projects. We have a great group of people down there. We are very understaffed. We've had staff openings for 10 months now in certain places. So that might be, there's probably a significant amount still in the wage part of it, but that would be why. Right now I believe we're 3 positions short, so hopefully we can at least get 2 done and filled up before winter time. So we don't have too many complaints on street plowing, but it hasn't been easy, but we've gotten it done, and I think everybody down there, even though we have been short, feels really good about what we have accomplished and where things are going, so. Any questions?
Thank you, Ryan.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you for stepping up to this role. I know it's been a hard year with management and staffing issues that you've had, and I really appreciate the work you've done here and helping out with all this. And now the rest of DPW too, you guys are great.
Thank you. I will let them know.
Any other questions? Alder Motive?
So we are still working on the wage negotiations, Lisa? Is that what I'm understanding?
I believe that's coming up tonight, right?
Any other questions? Thank you again, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Hillside Cemetery. Crystal, you're taking that one over?
Yep. All right, so just a couple of things to note on cemetery budget that I wanted to point out. They do have, oh, let me get my big one open, I have my notes. Okay. The meeting for the cemetery board is the 9th, so they have not had a chance to finalize that this is what we want for our budget. They have met once already, and they're good with their budget, but there's one piece that they're looking at, and it's for the projects. If you notice up in the revenues, there's $67,856 that they want to draw from the perpetual care funds. Those are funds that are set aside for every sale, a piece of it goes to perpetual care. What they're looking at is whether they want to use some of their own, some of the cemetery board's investments instead of all this coming from perpetual care. So that's one of the items on their list for that meeting. Right now, we had to budget it for what could happen. We put it in from coming in from perpetual care, but it could be a piece coming from the other fund, which is 830 or something like that. We'll get there. The next piece down is more like a plug figure. You don't want to budget a fund to the negative. So they're saying, basically, we're saying that if everything happened this year, we would have to draw from the fund balance, which was talked about by the auditor fund balance. They would have to draw from fund balance in the amount of $4,600. Okay. And basically, there was previous years, there was some sales for the columbarium. We don't see those very often anymore, and we're not budgeting that they're going to be happening a lot. So another note, the mowing contract that they talked about is budgeted in here for the mowing contract and not DPW workers mowing. That's in here. That's pretty much the highlights. If there's anything in there that you have a question about.
Any questions? No? Okay. Moving on to media coordination.
All right, so this is an area where I grouped a bunch of funds together so that David could help me with those. He's involved in the different meetings, the Cable Commission, Tourism Commission, and it interplays with the room tax. So what I did here is I put these all in one area for David and I to be working on together each year. And the very first section is basically the media's salary and the small expenses that the general fund need for him to be here and do his job. If you notice, there is the very first line is transfers from tourism and cable media. How did that work? Oh, there's a payroll allocation, basically. So when David does his timesheets, he tracks where he's spending his time. So the actual time spent is charged to tourism and cable. It's not just every year we're going to look about how much you do, and we're going to send that much percent of your payroll and charge them for it. He does it based on actuals. I charge it based on actuals to each of those funds. So that's why you see the revenue there. It's called transfers from tourism and cable. Then his salaries. So room tax fund. The one thing there that I want you to notice is the room tax is a flow through. It doesn't stay in the fund. The only thing staying in this fund is a little bit of interest. And it's just slowly accumulating, but there's not very much there to worry about. So 30% of the room tax collected is going to economic development. That's the top one. And then dash 333 is the 70%, which is going to to tourism. So CDA, economic development, that's a fund. That's going to the CDA. So that is our room tax fund. Did you want me to, does anyone have a question so far? Okay. All right, cable television, that was pretty much straightforward. The Cable Commission met on 9/25, and they're fine. This is the budget that David and I worked on. They've approved it on 9/25. Tourism Commission, they met on 9/11. That was approved on 9/11. If you notice there, the very first line on the revenues, that's their contribution. That was the room tax funds, and that matched the number up above, going out of room tax. Okay. So it's kind of how, I wanted you to see a little bit of how they tie together. Any questions there? Okay. All right. You ready to move to the big one? Okay. All right, I'm going to go over the first 2 pages, but I do have some changes. I do have a few more copies. Someone will write it up like their update. All right, since I'm not giving you a bunch of graphs this week, you'll have those next week again when we do the next meeting for public information. We'll have your charts all up to date again with any of the changes that come about from what we've discussed tonight. I have my bullet point list. Okay. All right, so the very first section again is just your comparison 2023 to 2024 on the levy. And as you, and if you'll note, our $3,762,509 was the number that was presented to you in the last meeting. Based on some of the discussion tonight, I be thinking about this, but I will have a question for you. How comfortable are you going up on that number? And so here's some information for you to consider in here. I did pull this apart a little bit based on how the funds actually work, instead of having, the levy showing direct payments to CDA, municipal court. They're set up in the budget. They were set up in the budget in the past years as transfers out. That's just why they're separated. That's all. And then our TIF increment taxes, I have compiled a forecast for those. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that I'm pretty close. I've looked at their trends, and basically what drives that is we already have our information. I plug in our levy. I have our equalized values. I have our assessed values, so I can do a lot of compilation with that. And for us to look at the TIF increments, part of that is driven by the county's levy, the school district levy, and the tech college levy. So when those I've kept, I went back and looked at their trends, and I put in what I felt comfortable to give an approximate of what I think our taxes are going to come out at. Usually that TIF increment number we don't have till like November. So I've given you the best I could so far. All right, and then I've provided a mill rate comparison for 2020, 2021, and 2022 with our 2023 tax bill estimate. And the first section is just the city's piece. This is just the city levy. It's based on the number up above of $3,762,509. The next number down is basically taking the TIF information that I've calculated and only taking the city's piece. If you look at a tax bill, it has one line for each taxing jurisdiction, and our line goes straight across, and it has two pieces. It has your levy, and then it will have the TIF piece included. So that's what this second line is all about. The third line is when you put everyone together and all the taxing jurisdictions, what's the bottom line mill rate on your tax bill? So I've provided all three of those for you. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, on page 2, what I've done is I've given you a little bit of information on debt, which you asked me to do, Ian, last meeting. So what I've done is I've put up, your first line is the debt included on the levy limit worksheet, period. And then the debt included in the general levy, that's how we break out the levy to the different funds. Okay, that's the second line. And then the third line, I went back and I found our general obligation debt for each of those years, the total GO debt. This does not include any revenue debt, just strictly GO debt that has to be accounted for levying, for all of that. And then what I did is I gave you the max allowable per state, that's the 5%. And if you notice under 2022 tax, it's got the 33% that the auditor mentioned that she put in her summary report. And then your policy has 65% of state allowable. So I gave you the calculation for that also. And then the little percent under it is saying where you're at with that level, that 5% level, and 65 of the 5% level, where you are and how much you've used of your maximum that you've set. Okay. And then I just went ahead, when you look at the capital projects fund, you see an account number and the dollar amount. So what I've done is I've kind of pulled out the pieces for you here so you can see what is included. And from your original version to this one, the only thing it was missing, stormwater's piece of the back truck was not on there. And it's not a change in the levy because the vac truck we're anticipating rolling into the bond, utilizing bonding this year for 2024 for the street project. And utility, we're going to be discussing with them bonding for what they're looking at for bonding. And so this will definitely come from one of the bonds. Okay. All right, so any questions on that? Yes.
I want to say thank you. Oh my gosh, getting this much information and having it broken down this way is amazing. I'm loving this. Thank you.
I'm trying to give you what I need for me to function in my job.
This is awesome. Thank you.
So I'm passing it on to you. So, well, thank you. Well, and I'm throwing you pieces, so hopefully it's making sense. All right, so now we go to our big one. I'm just going to walk through this because there's some things I need to point out. And some of it you've already heard, and I'll probably say it again. But we'll just start with page 1. All right, I don't really have anything here to explain. We're starting in our general fund. This is all of our different types of revenues and everyone's contribution to forecasting for those. If you'll notice on page 2, I have some yellow. The budget numbers are in. We're talking about, here we're looking at the fire department recouping money from the rural group. And for some reason over the last couple of years till I got here, they were putting it all into one account, and they've had accounts for us to break it out to, but they were lumping it. So Allie and I over the next week are going to be breaking it back out. So the budget piece is in, it's just going to get broken out. So I had to leave the yellow highlights so I don't forget to go do it. All right. I'm going, if you want to scroll through, have any questions, I'm going to page 4. If you'll notice, right towards the top, I have added a few accounts for court. We do have a few remaining court costs that are going to linger into the next year or so, and this is because we're doing debt collection. Okay. All right, these are pretty straightforward, the different types of areas of costs we have for administration, City Hall, and then anything of note, then we get down to PD on page 7. Is there any questions up to there if you want to take a moment? Okay. All right, so we went through police department budget. I do have a note about the amount for the part-timer that didn't flow through from the budget worksheet. I'm sorry, I have a payroll budget worksheet that flows in. Okay. All right. All right, then mostly we have everything you've already heard, DPW, the community center, rec center, parks. I do have a note on the part-time, looking at doing a full-timer. Okay, and then we get down to the very last page of the general fund, which is page 16. When you get there, let me know. Okay, page 16, there's a few things that I just wanted to clarify for you. The very first one is transfers to capital projects, $195,000. And what this is it's carry forward from 2022 or 2023 to 2024 of projects that were not done. So in the revenue section, there's an offset. So this has no effect on your bottom line. We're taking fund balance and moving it to next year. We're going to use it. We're saying we're going to use it next year. But we've also moved it to the capital projects fund. So it has a net zero effect on either year's actual budget. It does say we're using 2023 in 2024. And we're not going to use it in general fund. Now we're going to use it in capital projects. We wanted to clarify and basically not use these lines that say capital in the general fund and have it all in capital projects because it's a little confusing. And I think it's much more clear to have your major projects all in one place. Yeah. So those will be in the capital projects. This transfers to CDA. This is a budgeted item each year. You'll find it in the CDA. You budget for it every year. And the same thing, transferred out of 1,500, that is the May ward. Okay, that's it for general fund, unless you have any other questions. Okay, next page is CDA, and if you notice, there's your contribution from the city. There's the 16.5 from the room tax funds. And then we budget each year from the TIFs to support CDA, and the amount to get them to budget to zero. This year, we need $8,500 from each TIF to budget for the CDA's programs. All right. The main increase in CDA is payroll increases. Okay, any questions on CDA at this point? Okay. All right, and then we have the library. If you would turn to library on page 19, you will notice, I'll have a correction on her sheet, but there was $100,000 on transfers from surplus, basically meaning they knew they were going to need funds from their prior year to fund their roof. But it was never actually in the budget document you approved last year. I found that out in reviewing it with Ally because we had a couple numbers that didn't look right when we printed bottom line budget numbers for the year, and so we removed it. It was not in the formal one that you approved. So it actually, you approved it for the negative. Okay, so that was corrected. And then same thing, not same thing, but if you notice with their 2024 budget, The library, again, I think I don't know if I mentioned this or not, they are budgeting that if everything holds true, they will use some surplus from the prior years. All right, next we have Aquatic Center. We've already gone through that one. Room tax, we've gone through there. Cable, just one more note on cable. We are getting an intern. Yay. Okay, garbage and recycling. Lisa and I are currently working on this fund. It does not have an effect on your general fund if we budget it correctly, so this will not change our levy. But we do need to clarify some information, and we need to forecast how much is going to go on each person's bill, because we do have the purchase of the carts and all that to consider. So we're working on this one. All right, cemetery, we just went over that one. EMS, this was the approved budget from the Emergency Medical Services Group on 9/6. It is a contract. It's driven by the contract that we have for EMS. And then there's a 2% increase that occurred. Everything was very straightforward, went to EMS, got their approval. So that one kind of stands on its own. Special Parks Fund, we went over that one with Amy Jo. They are anticipating doing the projects next year finally. Tourism Commission, we went over that one. Municipal Court is in here because it has a prior year balance, and everything that had prior year balance got in your packet. So court will have nothing. Revolving loan fund, I am on page 32. Okay, we really don't budget much here. All we have is some loans that are coming in, being paid back. The revolving loan fund currently has about a $4,400 cash balance. If in the future you want to make additional loans, you will need to fund that with your general fund, and that would be part of another budget. That would be a piece of budget that you would have to budget for. We did not put anything in the budget for that this year. We're holding it steady unless you guys tell me otherwise. So right now, like I said, there's about $4,400 left in the fund that we could distribute in loans is all. Okay. All right, and then we get to debt service fund. Pretty straightforward. It's got your principal and interest, and we do collect special assessments and use them in the fund because most of the time these projects we did bonds for. So the revenues coming in on those special assessments are coming into this fund. And then your tax levy piece, as you find the top number here, it basically is to net this fund to zero, your budget to zero. So that's how much tax levy distribution is needed to keep this fund. All right, so next we have TIF 3, which closed. We are currently holding about $280,000 in a LGIP account, and that was for the Commerce Center developer agreement that got on hold a couple of years ago. We do have this calculated that this is what we owe them, but we are unable to pay them at this moment. So we spoke with the attorney and the auditors and even Ellers. We discussed it with everyone we thought of to discuss what do we do at this point, because we got to close the TIF. And I talked to DOR. They said put the money in a special account, and you retain it until it can be satisfied. So the money's being held. The TIF was closed. The money was distributed. So this is all done. All right, TIF 4, 5, and 6 pretty much are straightforward. There's not a lot of any specific changes in there to note. We do use, what was I going to note? Oh, yep, you'll notice your dollar amount does not match. It matches the original that I gave you for your calculation of what I say the TIF taxes are going to probably be. Your new numbers in here have not been updated in here. They are in my workbook now on my computer because it's automatic. But yeah, So those will all be updated for the new reports for next time. So that's the TIFs. Do you have any questions on the TIFs at this point? Okay. All right, and then we go to our capital projects. I went over the specific projects. You'll see the revenue side of it. You have the $195,000 coming in from the general fund for the projects that were carried over. There was sidewalks that got carried over. That was already in capital projects. That's the $31,000 carryover. And then your tax levy helps to balance the account. That's how much is needed in capital projects this year to do these projects. Okay. Okay, 650s are stormwater, and your levy did go up. We mainly due to, yep, the tax levy for that did go up mainly due to payroll, the payroll allocations. We did do a review of DPW's payroll, where their time is spent. We did a reanalysis of some timesheet information that's being tracked, and we did make slight adjustments between the different DPW functions and where their payroll got accounted for, trying to make it match to the what's actually happening out there, like streets versus snow removal and that kind of thing. Yep. So we did that. The next three funds, we do, let's see, what are we on? Oh, ARPA. You know that story. We're basically done with that. We have one more year of reporting, and that's it. And funds held in trust. This is where your May Ward money is held and your beautification committee funds are held. And I did, oh, he is still here, yep. So there was a beautification, oh, yep, I did get him last week from the beautification committee. The one big difference you see here is that they're budgeting to actually do the projects next year. So they'll be utilizing the funds that are in the account. Okay, and the next three funds, and I'm going to backtrack just a moment here, but first let's just note those. The Historic Preservation Fund, this is the HLPC's investment accounts and such. We do not budget for those. Cemetery Association, this is their investment accounts. We do not budget for those. And same thing with the library. The Library Foundation, these are their investment funds. We don't budget for those. Okay, so HLPC, I want you to go, I did skip that. I want you to go back to page 4. Page 4. And basically, the biggest change for the HLP, these are the ones that, line items that are budgeted that the city is saying they're going to contribute to HLPC for. And the biggest difference was that the Preservation Committee is requesting postage for the 2024 CLG grant. That's the $3,000 they're requesting. So that is a difference from prior years, and we opted to go ahead and put it in the budget and see if it was okay with you. Well, that's all I have on detail.
Very detailed.
Does anybody have any questions?
You'll be getting emails.
If you do have a specific question, please ask.
And not so much a question. My biggest, I mean, honestly, looking at our budget and the way it's broken down and some of the inadequacies that you've addressed, it's phenomenal. My only overall thing is we don't have any stormwater projects budgeted. We have nothing for real stormwater. The only thing that's in the stormwater budget is allocations of salary. There is zero stormwater activity. We've talked about trying to go to referendum again. This council has never talked about it again since then. It has never been discussed, and there is nothing happening. And this is a major issue in our community and something that needs to be addressed.
I thought the stormwater expenses were in the general fund until the stormwater started producing revenue, and then we would show it in the stormwater category. We just did the stormwater study, and we haven't gotten through approving all of that yet, correct?
Lisa could address that, but the reason, when Kyle was here, I asked him that question, okay, I have expenses going into both these places. Why are we doing this? And he said, well, we really need to track it somewhere, and in one place would be the best. So I moved everything to the fund. Whether it's an established utility or not, you can still have it as a separate fund. So for accounting purposes and for tracking purposes, that's why you see everything under stormwater fund, so that we can start getting a grasp on the tracking for it.
So there is nothing planned?
No.
Not project-wise, no.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the previous council did do the study. We do have the information. We have adequate things to go to referendum. That was something that the previous council was hoping this council would keep up with, but this council has not. And we have nothing planned. We have nothing going on, and it still needs to be done. And it's budget season. It is one of the times that it should be addressed, even though it should have been talked about for the rest of the year and just hasn't made it onto any of our agendas.
I do agree. I mean, we put a lot of time and energy into the stormwater study. We need to start making these capital improvements somehow. We have residents whose homes are flooding on a continual basis. It's a big issue. We're going to start losing residents if we don't address this.
I would agree that it's something that we've been talking about here and there for at least since I've been on here. Looking at what we've learned from stormwater and what we're doing in the city, perhaps it's maybe time to slow down on our roads, since our roads they're not bad. They're not like top notch, but I mean, they could be worse. So instead of allocating all our funds towards just street projects, maybe looking into maybe starting either a big one or a small one, depending on what our funds are allocated for, as opposed to just hoping that we can get another referendum through to get a fund going. We can actually start doing something with it.
Right, that's kind of where I was going at. Like, we were talking about getting a referendum going, but this council hasn't picked up the mantle of the previous council and actually made any progress toward that. So since that hasn't happened, I think we need to start planning on actually just funding the projects elsewhere. And I mean, of course, we can't fix everything at once. And like Alder Steiner said, no one thinks our streets are amazing, but comparatively speaking to other communities, we actually do have pretty good streets, and we have made a lot of progress, but we have made very little progress on stormwater, and that is a very serious thing that's affecting our community. I think it's time to start actually budgeting for it and doing something about it. I think in the future we should go to referendum and hopefully have a better funded regular utility, but in the interim we still have to start making progress towards doing something.
I do know that as the Utility Commission wanted to start a stormwater session again so we can start education on referendum again. However, I'm not on that, so I am going to recommend that somebody touch base with Sandy Curtis on the commission, who is very proactive with these stormwater and would be more than happy to help spearhead listening sessions and working with the community again.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I think we need to make a modest allocation into stormwater, and I would find it reasonable if it came out of our roads budget.
Any other thoughts or questions? Crystal, do you have enough direction to, yes, Alder Gray?
I think maybe if, Crystal, if you want to get with like Rupert Milky or kind of figure out what the next best feasible project would be, and then maybe then we know a ballpark of what we need to budget for, and that would kind of help potentially borrow
Right.
or budget however we can,
Yep.
type of thing.
Yes, we could do that.
Thank
And
you.
just so you know, I do see, when I've looked at some of the street projects, there's pieces of storm, but it's only the ones that are incorporated into that project for that specific street. So that's the only storm sewer.
Right, and that's the whole
Projects I've
thing. Like the previous council, our main drive was to come up with a more holistic plan so that we could actually address it adequately, because it hasn't been addressed adequately for, well, the history of Columbus, unfortunately. And so we need to like actually go back to the study and actually start addressing things before that study becomes obsolete. And we spent another, I can't remember how many tens of thousands of dollars doing a study that the city did nothing with, like the city has done many times in the past.
Well, we did that with the other projects. We had them come back and look at it and say, okay, where should we start? And let's get going on it. So kind of line it out that way.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll get off the soapbox. It's just, right now, we're doing budget. We need to do something in it.
Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you, Crystal. We will move on to discuss the Dodge County 911 Joint Powers Agreement. Have that in your packet. Lisa, did you have any more information on this one? Okay. Yep. Okay. Any questions or concerns with moving that one forward? Okay. And then next on the agenda is to discuss the LPFM application from the Cable Commission. That's also included in your packet. Just because I'm the liaison on that one. The FCC only opens the window to apply for these every couple of years, and the window is November 1st through the 8th. There isn't a financial obligation for the application. I'm going to let Lisa answer any questions that anybody might have. She's kind of the expert on this.
And I do, like I said before, I do have a handout for you that explains what LPFM is all about, because I know it can be just a little bit confusing. So, like Amy was saying, we have a very limited, rare opportunity to apply for the low-power FM radio permit. This is a construction permit. It's not a permit to start broadcasting right off the bat. So who this is available to? It's available to local governments. It's available to tribal institutions, educational organizations, other nonprofits. This would be a radio station that has a very small radius, about a 3.5-mile radius, so an opportunity for us to broadcast hyper-local content. The Cable Commission has been talking about this for a few months, and a few things have been brought up, and if I miss anything, please let me know. You may know, we have had frustration with Spectrum and having our broadcasts, our meetings shown on the air. This, in that issue, we've been working on that issue as well, but this would give us a point-to-point means of communicating as a city that we own and we can do something about. We can't always fix the problems that are, blocking us from transmission over cable. So, like I said, this is a pretty rare opportunity for us to be able to apply. It happens about once every 10 years. And the application window is coming up. It's the 1st through the 8th, I believe. So I think what we're asking is permission to apply as the City of Columbus for a construction permit for one of these radio stations. If we are approved, we have a year and a half from the point of approval to build that station and get it on the air to start broadcasting. And then, of course, there will be other, we have to register the station, and we have FCC checks and balances that will come after that, but this is just the initial first step. Any questions?
Do you have a location in mind to build the transmission radio station?
That's a great question. There are a couple of good locations, and I don't have a specific one. And let me give you just a tad bit of background because it's relevant from me and my career. I worked for the city of Sun Prairie for about 7 years, and in 2013, I applied for one of these stations, and we got the permit. So we built the station. We ended up putting our antenna on the top of the Sun Prairie Water Tower on Linderud Drive. It's kind of a big red and white fishing bobber looking thing. It's an excellent location. So that's a potential location here, would be the water tower. Of course, we would need permission from Water and Light to do that. There are several other sites in the community that would also work. What you're going for is, of course, height. And obviously, you don't want to have any crowding on that tower, so no other FM stations on that tower. So, while we don't have a particular one, we have some ideas.
Any other questions? Alder Gray?
Would there need to be any sort of brick and mortar anywhere in addition to this, or?
Yes. So we'll need a studio of some sort. That can vary really greatly. When we first set our studio up in Sun Prairie, it was about a 6 by 8 foot room, just jam packed. But there was enough room for 2 microphones and a turntable and just variety of decks and broadcasting equipment. So yes, we would need something. Antenna, and then point to point, and then a station itself.
Okay, but really the brick and mortar could be a room, so
Small.
we don't need like new construction of a building or anything of that
Correct.
nature.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing like that.
Any other questions? Is everybody comfortable moving this forward? Wonderful, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you all very much for hearing about this on such a long night.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to discuss Chris Schwartz's PAA recommendations. Lisa, did you want to?
Everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. Given that I've been sitting in this seat now for almost 4 weeks, Mayor Hammer's already aware of this. I have a list kind of a mile long that extends upon what's already in his memo. So I think it may be a better use of our time for me to use his memo, build upon it, and then we have a discussion and try to prioritize where I'm going to start, because we have a lot of work to do, in my opinion. So I think that would just be better than trying to piecemeal this together and then me come back with a bunch of other recommendations, if that's okay with the council.
Next item on the agenda is to discuss the Community and Economic Development Director job description.
So ultimately, what we're trying to do here is replace the planning director, but at the same time take into consideration that economic development and development seems to be the direction that the community kind of wants to go. So the position is written to maybe counter me slightly. Obviously, I'm a little more, have a lot more knowledge and skills in more community development. It would be helpful if this person had more of an economic development flow to be able to bounce ideas off of. But obviously, some of those planning aspects are still in there. And then obviously then to rescind or get rid of the assistant city administrator floating position that we seem to have out there. I don't think it's necessary. We have a lot of other needs. Obviously, we've heard them tonight. Other departments need help. We have wages that we need to increase, so we just should forget about this for now.
Any questions? Okay, we're comfortable moving this? All right, next on the agenda is to discuss wages for specific city positions.
So Mayor Hammer and I did go down and talk to Public Works about what's been proposed. As I said before, I think there was a lot of maybe promises made in the past that maybe couldn't be actually acted on within our budget constraints. What we would like to do, and I informed them of that, is at least move forward with what we've proposed in the packet and then backdate it back to the 1st of October so that they can receive wages, since we kind of ended up sitting on this. But I think it brings up a larger discussion that we have a wage study out there that's almost useless that most people haven't really even seen. I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of us, right. And I think we need to maybe go back to the drawing board, start taking a look at job descriptions. I can tell you, just updating this one and looking at them, none of them match. There's people that haven't looked at their job description in 5 to 10 years. I don't even know if it accommodates what they're actually doing. And that usually goes into a wage study. So I think there's some pieces we need to go back and kind of start over, and hopefully maybe out of the wage study, figure out a way to have step increases tied to a performance review system or something. Needs to kind of happen. We're kind of lacking in an actual personnel program, I think. So I think that's what the staff is waiting for. You know, I mean, you want to know you're going to be guaranteed a raise if you do a good job. And I don't think right now we can give that, and we're not keeping up with it. So we would like to give them something, try to get it going in the right direction, and hopefully be able to attract some people with some experience. But something we have to talk about is maybe going back to the drawing board with a wage study that actually works. So if anybody wants to see it, and I'm going to offer it to the department heads, I do have what I think is the draft, because I know people are asking for it. So if you want a copy to look at it, just let me know. It's obviously public. It's a public record. But I think just sharing it with some people and not with everyone is not right either. It's a transparency thing. We need to start to be transparent.
And Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the idea of having the stepping stones very much laid out. That is so helpful. I just want to be careful not to spend the monies that would have gone into a wage increase on the study for the wage increase. So I just want to be cautious. No, it was not.
Any other questions? Are we comfortable moving forward with this? Okay. The next on the agenda would be to convene to close session per 19.851E, and I will take a motion.
Alder Motive will make the motion to move to closed session per 1985E.
Alder Finkler will second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Finkler. And could I please have a roll call?
Hammer? Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner? Finkler?
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session. We will not be coming back to the air tonight. Thank you, everybody, and have a nice night.